I was having dinner with a man who was a physicist, and he happened to be the science advisor to President Reagan. He was a much older man who I'd bump into the coffee shop. We'd chat about things, and we were chatting, and I said, so what are you working on now? His name was Werner Lowenstein. What are you working on now? And he said, I am working on a book that helps us understand how individuated consciousness occurs at birth, how the mind becomes individuated. I said, oh, that sounds interesting. Do you know the answer? And he said, no, but I will by the time I finish. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up in the morning, and I heard something. And in fact, it says, these were the exact words I heard because I wrote them down. So I just wrote them down a bit ago. The organizing principle between quantum coherence and the development of the individuated human mind is the intention of the soul, which would indicate that the soul is doing a little bit of data input as the body, coming from the subtle realms, as the fetus and body is developing to create some of the traits it needs or prefers for this given incarnation. Now, as a physicist, looking at it from that point of view, he did not listen. He said, where did this come from? And I said, I got it in crossover state. He dismissed it. Yeah. Now, I explained it to another physicist, and he dissected it for me, William Brown. What is your take on that? I've always wanted intelligent takes on that because I could see it. I could see how it works when I was being shown it.
Well, I think where I would go to is the oft-repeated story about, this is often told by near-death experiencers, but not exclusively by them, that when we are preparing to take on a new incarnation, we often have what I think of as kind of my core team of advisors. You know, my angels, my astral friends, my astral teachers come together and basically coach me that this is what you should focus on in this life. This is your contract, as it said. This is your mission. And that once that agreement is reached, then you go into forgetfulness. There's very, very few people who remember leaving the astral regions and
absolutely
with continuity all the way through their gestation and into birth. So there's a forgetfulness that happens. But I think that is where the astral body doesn't have to go through that. The astral body remains as it was, but that can have some influence and imprint on the development of the human body. That's what I saw, and that's what you're saying. Yeah, our astral body contains all those intentions. It contains all those abilities, sort of, if you will, brought to the fore, so that you come into a life with those, ready to affect the body. If you have some karma, dharma, intention to be a superb athlete, it probably begins to affect your body, rearranges what DNA is being activated to create the right proteins to build a really athletic body or whatever you need.
Yeah,
so all of those things come from what's in that astral body projection, and then it becomes inevitably the astral projection, or the holographic projection rather, that is the physical body.
Yes. Okay, that makes perfect sense. That's another way to say this that is purely, to me, very logical. And if you look at it from a denser point of view, from an emotionally reactive point of view during the development of the fetus, for example, then you're down to epigenetics. Obviously, what's going on in our environment as the fetus is developing. I think one of the examples used in Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton ages ago was the notion of a child being born into a violent environment, started having they and their siblings a thickening of the skull because there was a chance of being in danger physically when they came into the world. And so that's just the dense version. We're talking about the more subtle, refined version from the top down part, and perhaps a little bit of the epigenetics slipping in underneath it.
Well, I think one of the things that your astral body, your ever-present astral body, your ever-present subtle body brings to the whole relationship between physical body and astral body is that it's in charge. Mm-hmm. It is the intelligent life force that is maintaining, sustaining, evolving the physical body. So it completely takes over the DNA in every cell of the body and uses every cell to express exactly what's needed. So there are many, many examples of how responsive the physical body is. If you do something repetitive that flexes a bone in your body, the body will start to build more bone cells on the side to keep it from flexing. So it stiffens it for you. So the body and brain are incredibly obliging servants for whatever the soul and the subtle body is trying to do through it.
Yes.
There's the old saying that I love, which is that when you're 20, you have the face you were born with. And when you're 40, you have the face you deserve. That you don't stay static. Now, that face at 40 could be even more beautiful, right? It could be radiant. It could be full of joy and life and magnetic, or it could be
whichever way you go is the one you've created. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. Okay, so now let's get to the how-to part. So we get the notion. We're in this incredible symphony of frequencies. We're in, and I don't mean it in a conspiratorial, disempowering way. In the greatest sense of the word, we're in this constantly co-creating a kind of holographic reality, and everyone in every realm throughout the universes is having their own unique experience of this. And so, considering all of this, how do we begin connecting then I know you meditate every day, and so that's probably the answer, but how would you say the quickest path, easiest, most sure path to allowing ourselves to connect with higher mind, i.e. all of the subtle frequencies around us, so that we can literally live a much fuller life, a life filled with grace and with context?
Well, I love the way you said that, because I think when you say meditation, people think of it almost like a static exercise. So every day I meditate for whatever length of time, and then that's done, and I go on with my day. But I think what you said is the best way to explain it. Is I haven't been meditating for 50 years. I've been connecting to spirit for 50 years through the agency of meditation. So if you meditate even a little, you'll begin to feel that connection. There's a phrase or a word in Indian teachings called Smyritti, which is loosely translated as divine memory. And what it implies is that as we have these growing experiences in meditation, they just seem so familiar because they're memories. They're not, totally new territory that we've never been before. We're just remembering who and what we really are. And it feels so right. It feels so satisfying. It's like, of course, this is the way I should feel all the time. Yeah. This is the kind of person that I should bring into action in my daily life. And that's what meditation is all about, is connecting. Now, there are things that we may have to deal with, and I spend a goodish bit of time in my book, Break Through the Limits of the Brain, talking about this, is that we may have life issues that keep pulling us away from meditating or pulling us away from connecting to spirit. And they're very compelling. And I would generally classify them as negative emotions. Now, there's a school of thought that there is no such thing as negative emotion. Emotion is just emotion, and it can be useful to you, that anger can get you through difficult times, etc. But I would just put a different definition on what I mean by negative emotions. Anything that habitually gets you more enthralled with the issues of your daily life and brings up for you unwanted feelings and unwanted behaviors that are interfering with your life, I would say those are negative emotions. So, and that's why they're negative, is they pull us away. So if you do find yourself having this kind of challenge in your life, and it's certainly not unusual, then I highly recommend introspection and affirmation as a pair of complementary activities. So introspection is more than just occasionally kind of tuning into how am I doing. It's really a methodical process of either daily or a couple times a week, or at the very least once a week, taking the time to look at your life and ask a question, and ask the same question for a long period of time. So if you're dealing with, let's say you're always feeling threatened by your life, that it stresses you out because everything from one perspective seems to be going wrong in your life, and it's always challenging in you, and things are just never working out, and therefore you don't feel safe. So if that is an issue you're going through with, and that leads to stress and makes it impossible for you to meditate, then take time every day, if possible, to ask yourself the question, what made me feel unsafe today? And after you begin to see a pattern of what the things are that are making you feel unsafe, ask a deeper sort of level of it. And that is, does this happen in all contexts? You know, I'm seeing that my boss makes me unsafe, but in other instances, other things make me feel unsafe. So you begin to see something running deeper in you. And as you get more and more clear on what it is that makes you unsafe, this prepares you to choose an affirmation, which is like the antidote, positive expression to what is making you feel unsafe in this case, or anything that your introspection reveals to you. Those affirmations then become a deliberate way of creating a new neural circuit in your brain.
And you talk a lot about neural circuitry of the brain, and this is key. This is everything. Well,
if you don't create new, better neural circuits,
right,
you're just going to live with your old circuits.
Right.
They're pretty set in their ways. If you're certainly my age, but even by the time you're in your 20s, a lot of your patterns are set. So unless you deliberately create a new neural circuit with new intention, you're pretty much going to just watch your life unfold according to what you've set in motion. So find an affirmation, that could be, I am safe, I am sound, I exist in the loving arms of the divine. Now, that may not be the best one for a person, but I'm just using it as an example. Once you've figured out what the antidote is, then, and this is where most people don't make good use of affirmations, is you need to say it methodically for weeks to months. It needs to be something that just becomes a running thought in the background of your mind, and in quiet moments you just repeat that affirmation. If you meditate, at the end of your meditation you say it with intensity. And the key thing is that you have to get to the point where you actually believe it emotionally.
Yes.
You feel it.
Yes.
By saying it, you go, oh, I do feel safe. I am sound because the spirit is within me, and you know it in your heart of hearts. Then you keep going because you're just starting to really make that new neural circuit powerful.
If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And you might also want to consider joining Patreon, which allows me to keep all of this content free and available to everyone. And if you're looking for like-minded souls, you might also enjoy my online community called Our Neighborhood. Links to join are in the description.